Maybe everyone's acting strangely because they're tiptoeing around my relationship situation. But this isn't a breakup. It's a temporary pause, a breather, an opportunity for Bob to see reason and admit that trying to dictate my life was out of line. Hey, Bob here. You know how they say hindsight is 20/20ths? Reflecting on my 2-year relationship with Angela, I should have spotted the red flags earlier. Don't get me wrong, the first year and a half were amazing. We shared common hobbies, had personalities that balanced each other, and enjoyed a natural ease that made me think, yeah, this could really work. But then there was Dean. Let me be clear, I'm not the jealous type. When Angela initially mentioned her best guy friend, I didn't give it much thought. We're adults, right? It's normal to have friends of any gender. Yet something about Dean set me on edge from the start. Maybe it was the way Angela's face lit up when she talked about their latest escapades or how she'd drop everything if he called. Still, I decided to be supportive. Relationship advice always says to trust your partner. So I smiled and nodded every time she brought up their friendship, even as that uneasy feeling in my gut kept growing. It all began harmlessly with their prank war. The first one was actually pretty amusing. Dean rigged a Jack Nicholson soundboard in Angela's office. She'd be in the middle of work and suddenly, "Here's Johnny," would blast from her speakers. I remember her calling me, laughing so hard she could barely speak. Angela, never one to back down, retaliated by getting hold of Dean's landline bill and charging $200 worth of calls to a certain hotline. She was practically glowing with pride when she described his shocked reaction to me. I laughed along, but something about how far they were pushing things started to feel off. Then there was the infamous doll incident. At a house party we hosted, Dean sneaked upstairs and placed a creepy antique porcelain doll in Angela's closet. Not just any doll. This thing looked like it belonged in a horror movie, complete with lifeless glass eyes and a crack down its face. Angela found it while grabbing a jacket for a guest, and her scream nearly shattered the windows. But instead of being upset, she was thrilled. "This is perfect," she exclaimed. "Now I have to outdo him." That's when I noticed the shift in her. The pranks became less about having fun and more about topping Dean's latest move. She spent hours planning her next stunt, scribbling ideas in a notebook she thought I didn't know about. Our dinner conversation started revolving around Dean. What he might do next, how she could counter it, and dissecting his every action like it was a battle strategy. "It's just good fun," she'd say whenever I voiced my concerns. "You're taking this way too seriously, Bob." But was I? From my perspective, it didn't look like harmless pranking anymore. It felt like something deeper, something that made me increasingly uneasy. I found myself studying her expressions when she talked about their antics, noticing how her cheeks flushed and her gestures became animated. It was the same excitement I used to see when she shared her dreams and plans with me at the start of our relationship. Somewhere along the way, those heartfelt conversations had been replaced by endless discussions about Dean and their elaborate schemes. Looking back now, I see how things really changed. It wasn't just about the pranks, it was what they symbolized. While Angela and Dean were building their own private world of inside jokes and competitive challenges, I was slowly being sidelined in my own relationship. But you know the story about the frog in boiling water? I was so busy trying to be the understanding, supportive boyfriend that I didn't notice how bad things had gotten until it was almost too late. And believe me, things were about to reach their breaking point. "Hey, Angela here. Let me tell you something about pranks. They're like potato chips. You can't stop at just one. And when you've got a partner like Dean, it's game on. Bob just doesn't understand. He keeps giving me these worried looks, like I'm some kind of obsessed maniac." "Angela, don't you think this is getting a little out of hand?" Bob asked me last night, while I was putting the finishing touches on my masterpiece, a life-sized papier-mâché clown. This was going to be legendary. "Bob, sweetheart, you're overthinking it," I replied, carefully painting the red nose. "It's just harmless fun between friends. Friends don't usually spend 3 weeks crafting elaborate pranks," he muttered. I rolled my eyes. "That's because you've never been in a proper prank war. This is art, Bob, pure art." The plan was flawless. I'd already convinced Dean's roommate, Chad, to let me into their apartment while Dean was at work. The clown would be strategically placed in his living room, and I would hide inside it, waiting for the perfect moment. Simple yet brilliant. "What if something goes wrong?" Bob asked, refusing to drop the subject. "What if he has someone over? What if—" "Then it'll be even funnier," I interrupted. "God, when did you become such a buzzkill?" That's the thing about Bob. He's so cautious, always thinking ahead. Dean, on the other hand, gets it. Like that time I called him at 3 a.m. to brainstorm this clown idea. You're absolutely insane, he laughed. I love it. Better watch your back, buddy, I teased. This one's going to make the doll stunt look like child's play. Bring it on, sunshine. I'm still winning this war, he shot back. That's the kind of energy I need in my life, not Bob's endless worrying and overanalyzing. The day of the prank arrived, and everything went like clockwork. Chad helped me set up the clown. We made it hollow enough for me to fit inside comfortably, with cleverly disguised peepholes for eyes. You sure about this? Chad asked as he helped me climb in. Dean can be a little jumpy. That's the whole point, I whispered back, settling into my hiding spot. Now shush and get out of here before he comes home. The wait was agonizing, but exhilarating. My heart was pounding, and I had to stifle giggles every time I pictured Dean's reaction. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I heard his key in the lock. Chad, you home? Dean called out as he entered. I held my breath, waiting for the perfect moment. At first, he walked right past me, but then he did that classic double take you see in movies. I leaped out of the clown yelling, "Surprise!" What happened next was a blur. Dean, with lightning-fast reflexes, reacted instantly. 1 second I was jumping out. The next I was on the floor, stars swimming in my vision, and a broken nose. Oh my God, Angela. Dean's horrified face came into view. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. What were you even thinking? Worth it, I managed to say through the blood, laughing despite the pain. You should have seen your face. Of course, Bob lost it when he saw me in the emergency room. This has gone too far, he insisted, pacing beside my hospital bed. You could have been seriously injured. But I wasn't, I argued. It's just a nose, and now I have to step up my game for the next round. The next round? Bob stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Angela, you're lying in a hospital bed with a broken nose. Exactly, I said, which means Dean won this one. I can't let that stand. Some people might call this obsessive. Bob certainly does, but they don't get it. The thrill, the planning, the anticipation, and the satisfaction of pulling off the perfect prank. Sure, there was the broken nose, but come on, it's all part of the game. Besides, Dean felt so bad about the whole thing that he's been bringing me soup and ice cream every day since. That's what real friendship looks like, not constant criticism and worry like some people I could mention. You're going to regret escalating this, Bob warned me yesterday. I just smiled and started sketching out my next plan. Because here's the truth about pranksters. We don't know how to quit while we're ahead. And honestly, I wouldn't want it any other way. Things really spiraled after the clown incident. You'd think breaking my nose would have been a wake-up call, but no. It only made me more determined. Bob and I had a huge argument about it in the kitchen. One of those fights that starts with one issue and ends up touching on everything. I just don't get why you can't be supportive, I said, aggressively stirring my coffee. It's like you're allergic to fun. I couldn't help but laugh at that. Supportive of what? Watching you get hurt trying to outdo Dean? This isn't about impressing anyone. I slammed my spoon down. Why do you always make everything about Dean? Maybe because everything is about Dean these days, he shot back. When's the last time we talked about something other than him or your ridiculous pranks? At least he appreciates my sense of humor, I said, my voice sharp. You used to be fun, Bob. What happened to you? What happened to me? I grew up, he replied. There's a difference between having fun and whatever this obsession has become. You sound just like my ex, I snapped. Always trying to control what I do and who I spend time with. Yeah, because being worried about your broken nose is exactly the same as controlling you, he retorted. The argument might have gone on, but that's when it happened, the infamous gorilla incident. We heard a massive crash from the living room, followed by the sight of a guy in a full gorilla suit smashing our coffee table. What the hell? I yelled, rushing in with Bob right behind me. The gorilla, who I later learned was Chad, was making absurd hooting sounds while throwing pillows around the room. I was just about to call the authorities when Angela started laughing uncontrollably. Oh my God, this is genius, she squealed. That's when it hit me. This was one of her pranks, wasn't it? Yet something felt off. The person in the gorilla costume was being too destructive, too intent on keeping our focus. I glanced toward our bedroom and caught a fleeting glimpse of Dean sneaking out. What did he do? I demanded. Angela shrugged, still chuckling. I'm sure we'll find out soon enough. That's when I lost it. I'm not proud of what happened afterward, but something inside me snapped. I charged at Chad, aiming for his shoulder, but accidentally landing a punch on his jaw. Bob, Angela screamed. What is wrong with you? Chad stumbled backward, yanking off the gorilla mask. Dude, what is your problem? Dean came rushing in. Whoa, calm down. It was just a joke, man. A joke? I shouted, trembling with anger. Breaking into our apartment and wrecking our stuff is supposed to be funny? We didn't break in, Angela said softly. I gave him a key. You know that moment in movies where everything slows down and the camera zooms in on someone's face? That's exactly how it felt. You what? Don't make this into something it's not, she replied, helping Chad get up. Come on, guys, let's get some ice for his jaw. And just like that, she left with them. My girlfriend walked out with the guy who had been systematically inserting himself into our relationship and his roommate, who had just trashed our home. She didn't even glance back. Later that night, I discovered what Dean had done. He had stashed slices of ham under our mattress cover. Childish, right? But it wasn't about the ham. It was about Angela giving them access to our apartment without telling me, about her choosing their idea of fun over our relationship, about the way she walked out with them, leaving me looking like the villain. The worst part? As I cleaned up the chaos they had left behind, I realized I had become a secondary character in my own relationship. The dull boyfriend who didn't get it, the obstacle in their grand escapades. When Angela came home that night, she acted as though I was the one who needed to apologize. Maybe she was right. Maybe I had changed. But as I watched her scroll through messages from Dean, planning their next prank, while our broken coffee table sat in pieces, I understood something. Sometimes maturity means knowing when to step away from the circus. Now Angela is staying at Dean and Chad's place, and honestly, she seems freer than ever. Stay as long as you like, Dean told her as he helped carry her overnight bag. The couch is yours. Thanks, she replied. I can't be there right now. You saw how he acted, Chad chimed in, pressing an ice pack to his jaw. He punched me in the face. I'm so sorry about that, Angela said for what felt like the 100th time. I've never seen him like that, but that's not completely true, is it? Looking back, the signs were there. The way Bob would stiffen whenever Dean called. The subtle remarks about their pranks. Classic controlling behavior. I should have known better. I've dated guys like that before. Meanwhile, Bob has been sending Angela long emotional messages about emotional cheating and how much she's changed. Changed, she said aloud. Yeah, I've changed. I've finally found people who understand me. People who don't try to force me into their idea of who I should be. This morning, Chad brought her coffee, looking unusually nervous. So, how long do you think you'll stay? Trying to get rid of me already? She teased. No, just curious. Dean shot him a look she couldn't quite interpret, but she was too drained to figure it out. Anything felt better than going back to Bob's suffocating concern, Angela's sister called later. Are you sure this is a good idea? Moving in with two guys you barely know? I know them, Angela snapped. They're my friends. Better friends than my so-called boyfriend, who thinks I need to grow up. That's not what Bob said in his message to me. You talked to Bob, Angela asked, stunned. Whose side are you on? This isn't about sides, her sister replied. But for Angela, it absolutely was. Bob drew a line when he decided their pranks were reckless rather than harmless fun. When he started treating her friendship with Dean like it was a problem to solve. Your boyfriend's acting kind of possessive, Dean had said months ago. Thinking back, Angela realized she should have noticed it then. The way Bob turned everything into a bigger issue than it needed to be. A broken nose? Please. She'd had worse playing softball, damaged property, easily replaceable. Sure, giving Dean and Chad a key without telling Bob wasn't her smartest move, but his reaction, completely overblown. And now he's convinced there's something going on between her and Dean. I told Dean last night, Angela recalled, both of them laughing at the absurdity. That's ridiculous, Dean said, though his tone seemed a little off. Maybe everyone is acting strangely because they're tiptoeing around her situation. But this isn't a breakup, it's a break. A pause for Bob to realize he's overreacting and admit he was wrong for trying to control her. Still, watching Chad and Dean whispering in the kitchen earlier, only to fall silent when she walked in, felt unsettling. But it's probably just her imagination. Bob's accusations and theories are starting to mess with her mind. Right now, I'm exactly where I should be, away from Bob's constant criticism and surrounded by people who appreciate my adventurous spirit. If he can't handle that, it's his problem, not mine. Breakups are messy, sure, but this was on another level, entirely. The day after Angela left, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. 60 missed calls from a hidden number, each playing How Deep Is Your Love by the Bee Gees. Very mature. I had the locks changed that same day. Angela wasn't on the lease, and after the key situation, I wasn't willing to take any more chances. Her belongings sat in boxes near the door, our life together reduced to a stack of containers marked with a Sharpie. Let me pick up her stuff, Dean texted me. Not Angela, not Chad. Dean. When he arrived, something seemed different. His usual confident smirk and easygoing demeanor were gone, replaced by a nervous, almost uneasy vibe. Hey, man, he said, shifting uncomfortably. There's something I need to tell you. I leaned against the door. Unless it explains why my phone's stuck on disco tunes, I don't want to hear it. It's about Chad, he admitted, running his hand through his hair. The prank war? It wasn't what you thought. Apparently, Chad had liked Angela for months. The prank war, that was all his idea. He convinced Dean to help, hoping Angela would see him as just a fun, easygoing friend, and eventually start to fall for him. So, let me get this straight, I said, barely holding back a laugh. You were causing chaos to help your roommate win over my girlfriend? Not exactly, Dean replied, looking genuinely sorry. I only went along with it because Chad's my friend. I didn't expect things to go this far. I've never had feelings for Angela. Does Angela know about Chad? I asked. No, he said. And honestly, I don't think she sees either of us that way. She's just caught up in the thrill of everything. As Dean loaded Angela's belongings into his car, I couldn't help but think about how ridiculous it all was. My relationship fell apart because of a prank war orchestrated by a guy too shy to be honest about his feelings and supported by his roommate just trying to have his back. Angela moved in with them officially last week. Sometimes I drive past their house and see her car parked in the driveway. I imagine the day she finally realizes the truth, that she's living with one guy who only sees her as a sister and another who has been quietly manipulating things to get closer to her. Occasionally, my phone still plays How Deep Is Your Love, but now it just makes me laugh. Somewhere across town, the woman I cared about is living with a guy who isn't romantically interested and another too scared to confess his feelings. It's like the plot of a bad sitcom. Maybe one day she'll call when she figures it out. Maybe she never will. Either way, I'm done playing the role of an audience member in their drama. Sometimes, the best choice is to turn the page, leave the show behind, and move forward.